Oh my God, Drew, I don't even recognize you anymore. What is it? What's the problem? You're not even wearing your Apple Watch. You're using a home button. You don't want an iPad anymore. What the heck is wrong with you? How could we be considered family? We have the same mom? No. That means nothing if you don't want iPadOS to be a part of your life. Okay, Frank, I understand. It's just, it feels like Apple's abandoning my iPad simply because it doesn't have an M1 chip in it, and these are all skill issues. You have simply forgot to order the superior M2 iPad Pro. Okay, but just paying $5 a month for Final Cut when I've already bought it and I'm using it on my MacBook Pro anyway feels like kind of a waste of... I can't even talk to you right now. It's ridiculous. Sorry. I know, this is not a video I ever thought I would make, but it's not something I'm completely convinced of either, because obviously a lot of my perspective has changed on iPadOS within the past couple of years, and it feels like just yesterday I was telling everybody this is my favorite Apple hardware because the silicon was so fast, the Face ID was so good, and we had ProMotion, and we got USB-C on this product. It just felt like in terms of the iPad hardware team, Apple was listening. And then I think where it kind of strayed from the course, it strayed from that original Steve Jobs formula, was once Apple started running out of things for the iPad hardware to do, so that's when they tried to start making it more so into a two-in-one, a hybrid device. It can do laptop things because it has a trackpad and it has a keyboard, and it can do tablet things because it's a touch-dominant operating system. And that's when I think I started expecting the iPad to do a lot more. It's like, okay, now you've got the same Apple Silicon as very powerful Macs, and you've got the same I/O, now you've got the same input methods, so yeah, I'm gonna start expecting it to do a lot of Mac-level things, especially when a lot of iPad combos start to cost more than MacBooks cost. And we've been bickering about this back and forth in the tech community for years now, where I keep saying, I think the iPad should have dual boot macOS, and you guys all keep responding with the same thing, expecting my reaction to somehow change. Drew, if you want a Mac, just buy a Mac, and if you want an iPad, just buy an iPad. And I always respond with the same old, if you wanted a camera, you should have bought a Nikon, and if you wanted a smartphone, you should have bought a BlackBerry, and if you want an iPod, buy an iPod. But no, Apple found one of the most successful products of all time by combining all of those categories into one very capable device called the iPhone that is capable of replacing our point-and-shoot cameras, replacing our BlackBerries and flip phones, and replacing our iPods, and that ended up being a very successful product. It's weird. It's like if you can find a way to merge multiple product categories into one, even though there are some compromises, people are willing to do it if the compromises aren't that great. And I still think there's a very plausible and realistic way you could make an iPad do everything a Mac can do in terms of software. Maybe not so much hardware, but I think those compromises for a lot of people would be worth it. But this ain't getting anywhere, right? Because we just saw how Final Cut and Logic are being redesigned and likely gonna leave out some of the functionality that we like about the Mac version in favor of some new touch-friendly control features so that you can edit Final Cut or edit in Logic without a keyboard and trackpad. But I think what overall impressed me about the Pixel tablet was Google kind of admitting what is a tablet really good for. And as cringy as the event may be, stuffed full of their 150 AI references, I thought they brought up an excellent point that was actually very relatable to me when it came to tablets, which is that they mostly stay in the home, and there's often times where you go long stretches without ever using your tablet, and then when you finally do feel like, actually, you know what, maybe this is one of those I need a tablet type situations, you reach for it and the battery's dead because it's been left in a drawer, or in my case, it's been left under the desk, untouched for weeks on end, so it didn't make it. It's just dead. Something I want to give some credit for with what Google did with the Pixel tablet is that they have fallen back, in my opinion, to not trying to make a tablet so much of a laptop that can also be a tablet, but instead, they're making it a hybrid two-in-one device for the smart home, the smart speaker system that you can also disconnect from that speaker and take along with you in the house as you need a larger media consumption device. And I think that's why it spoke to me a lot, is because it's not that expensive. $499 for an 11-inch tablet, and sure, it's not that fancy, and I think that's kind of okay. It doesn't have 120 hertz, it doesn't have Face ID, it doesn't have LiDAR or an ultra-wide camera or a state-of-the-art M2 chip in it that's gonna be fully unlocked in a future update thanks to iPadOS 17. Just a touchscreen that's bigger than a phone that allows for a larger media consumption device and more comfortable video calls and more comfortable web browsing housing than what a phone can offer. And simultaneously, when you're not using your tablet and your hands are busy with whatever, you're in the kitchen or washing dishes, whatever it may be, now there's a essentially inductive charging method. I know it's not technically inductive, but basically with one hand you can drop this tablet on a charging dock and that tops it off. Hopefully it has optimized battery charging, but I don't know yet. And that allows you to connect to a much superior sound system, so it basically replaces the job of what a Nest Hub would do, or for many of us, a Nest Mini would do. I feel like that's the one everybody has access to. So you have access to the smartest digital assistant, which yes, even me and my wife are still using the Google Home Max that we got all those years ago. So that's an actually pretty common use case for us, calling out to Google, asking for it to play music, and letting it kind of act as a smart hub system for the household so that you can easily change the lights or set timers and also get a visual along with it, and also take video calls off of that tablet and watch videos off of that tablet. Yeah, I feel like this is actually a refreshing take, because I'm just so sick of Apple trying to advertise how this is the tablet that can replace your laptop. And sure, for some people it can, but I'm still using a MacBook because there's all kinds of things that the iPad Pro still can't do, even if you spend over $2,000 on it. Basic software functionality that macOS is rocking that the iPad totally could, but doesn't. And every year, it feels like Apple is constantly trying to justify you spending over $1,000 on your iPad, right? It's like, well, I know the A12X chip is still pretty fast on your iPad Pro, but we're not going to give you Stage Manager. We're not going to give you external monitor support. We're not going to give you Final Cut unless you upgrade and spend an extra $1,200, $1,300 on this tablet, which is ultimately still going to run into circumstances where it says, oh, well, because it's an iPad, it can't do that, and you should really also buy a MacBook as well. I don't really love that business model. Like, I've played that game with Apple before, and I don't like the road that they're kind of leading down on of, well, you just have to subscribe month to month for this pro software. But then, of course, what other functionality are they going to come up with? Like the calculator membership app, and that calculator app is only going to work if you have the M3 chip on your iPad Pro, 14-inch or 15-inch screen, and an OLED display, and that's going to cost you, $1,600, not including the Magic Keyboard. Like, I'm just willing to accept that we've had this bickering back and forth on what a tablet should be in terms of a two-in-one, and I'm just gonna start accepting what you guys say, which is, if you want to buy a Mac, buy a Mac. Okay, I did that. I did that like 2 years ago, and I'm loving my Mac, and I'm using my Mac, but if you want to justify me spending $1,000, $1,200, or sometimes more than $1,500 on a tablet, my point was, to justify that, it would have to do some basic level things that a Mac is capable of doing. Yeah, I'm gonna expect the software to be at least as good, because I know the hardware isn't gonna be as good, with less ports, worse display, smaller battery, worse cooling system because there's no fans in the tablet. Whereas Google's approach was, let's make it a hybrid two-in-one product, but we're not trying to make it a laptop here. And I appreciate Google for actually unveiling a somewhat affordable tablet, $499 in 2023, and at no point showcasing it with a keyboard and trackpad attached. That's something they didn't do back when they unveiled the Pixel Slate. They were trying to advertise it as this it's kind of a Chromebook, but it's kind of an Android tablet and kind of sucks at both. No, now they're using their own custom silicon rather than relying on some other crappy chip, and they're making it easier to charge, easier to top off. It has a resting place that allows it to be functional even when you're not using it as a smart speaker, which I think a lot of us have started using in our day-to-day lives as digital assistants and as doorbell camera feeds and smart home controls, and you can put lyrics on the music you're listening to on there. And yeah, I do despise the white bezel options, but unlike the 24-inch iMac, they actually have an option with black bezels, so good job, Pixel. That way you please both parties. If some of you want white bezels, you can have it. And my only hesitation when it comes to actually buying a Pixel tablet is when it comes down to the execution of a lot of Pixel hardware has always been botched. There's a lot of good ideas I think Google has had in the past, but how they execute them can often leave you wanting more. It can be buggy, and Google is known for killing off things prematurely, so I hope that's not the case with the Pixel tablet. And also, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be out of the country when deliveries of the Pixel tablet begin, so that's why I haven't ordered one yet. But rest assured, I'm keeping a very, very sharp eye on this one, because I need my iPad as a tool functionality with now my iPhone. Because I have an iPhone SE2 now with Subject Lift, that kind of eliminated a lot of the point of me having a tablet with a stylus so that I could mask out subjects and things. Now that I can lift any subject from any photo thanks to iOS 16 on my iPhone SE, there's not a lot of point for me using my iPad these days. In fact, other than just as a reference for when I'm doing tech videos like this, I actually haven't like genuinely used my iPad for several weeks now. It just kind of sits dead under my desk. And pretty much the only perk that my wife and I appreciate having a tablet for is occasionally watching a movie or show when we're like in the kitchen or in bed or away from the TV, essentially, if you want the speakers to be quiet for whatever reason. It's just turned into what any old iPad is capable of, which is a media consumption device. And she has the 10.5-inch iPad Pro 2 if she wants to read books or FaceTime someone on a larger display than what her phone can offer. So I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I'm accepting that tablets might be better off as just media consumption devices. And if that's the case, then justifying a $1,000 plus iPad Pro is really, really difficult these days when our phones are capable of being such great media consumption devices already and productivity devices. And I'm very curious to see Google's new implementation because I haven't really seen a tablet done this way before. And on top of that, I'm also really impressed with their kickstand design. You know, instead of having this flimsy, foldy fabric that Apple charges $80 to $100 for, and frankly, this stuff ages horribly. I didn't talk about that in my 10.5-inch iPad Pro review, but man, this stuff just scratches and collects oils and starts falling apart just a few years into ownership, whereas Google has developed what appears to be a bit more of a premium solution and this big loop ring design on the back that still lets you dock it on the charging stand, which is really smart. But I was also thinking with that metal ring on the back, you could probably hang it somewhere in the house, you know, turn it into a picture frame, which is what Google says it turns into when you're not using it. I just think the functionality here they've come up with is actually pretty compelling for the price. It would be a different story if the Pixel tablet was, you know, like $800 to $1,000, but for $499, I gotta admit, this is a pretty compelling option. Maybe it sounds way worse than I expect. Maybe there's other compromises I don't know about yet, but when I get back from my overseas trip, this is something that I absolutely am curious about and want to check out, and frankly, I would just love to see Apple copy. I want Apple to make an iPad/HomePod product that can turn into a smart hub for your home when you're not using the tablet, but then you can easily remove and use as a media consumption device, in which case you're just streaming movies, watching YouTube, and then 60 hertz is fine. You know, obviously 60 hertz is not going to be as great for drawing with a stylus, but I didn't see Google really even pushing a stylus with this product or a keyboard case and trackpad, which ultimately makes most iPad products, even the iPad 10, their lower price tier with USB-C and everything that still requires the stupid Apple Pencil 1. Even that thing, when you buy it with the keyboard case, is more expensive than the Pixel stand, which the iPad 10 has a non-laminated display. That's 60 hertz as well. Pixel tablet has the charging dock included and I assume a laminated display. Fairly high resolution, nothing fancy. So I feel like Google's actually kind of captured the market for what people use a tablet for better, and I'm just kind of accepting defeat on, okay, if you want me to buy a Mac, I already did that. I'm using my Mac and I love it. The MacBook Pro is great. Google's got nothing that can touch that. But in the tablet space, I actually appreciate where Google's going with it a bit more than Apple, which just seems to be trying to justify you gotta upgrade again. 4 years have gone by and now your A12X chip is dated. You need to buy a new iPad to access these new features we came up with that are still gonna be fundamentally limited compared to what a Mac can do, but will still cost more than what a Mac can do. Yeah, I'm kind of annoyed by it. So what do you guys think of the Pixel tablet approach versus the iPad approach? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.